rock star. It's part of the music composition thing. Anyway, welcome to this afternoon's session, what we call the non-Chris Robinson Communications Seminar. So, he's talking about how to communicate on a one-on-one basis, body language, inflection, listening. We're talking about a different type of communication. We're talking about communications technology, the hardware, and finding hidden value in your company's internal assets. Now, the goals are going to be, we're going to determine what are these high-value surplus assets. We'll talk about establishing best practices amongst the various sales and disposal methods. And we'll create business cases to best handle marketable communications equipment. Okay, so what are business technology assets, IT equipment? It could be anything, phone systems, computers, smartphones, networking equipment, telecom equipment, printers, pretty much anything with a plug or battery. So, how are IT assets handled at your particular company? Are you personally responsible? Does the IT department handle it? Purchasing department handle it? You don't know. Well, regardless of who's handling it, it should be in the investment recovery, because you people, you're the experts. You know what to do with the product, given enough time, space, and resources. By resources, I do mean management backing. Now, there's a number of good reasons that the IR department should have control or input into the process. You may supervise it, they resell the assets directly, or have them outsourced to another department. You could even outsource that to another company. You could advise another department within your organization of the best practices that you've learned here at the association, because IR adds value. Okay, we're going to start at the beginning. Sales 101. How many people here think of themselves as salespeople? Roughly half, 2/3. All of you are. Whether you're selling your services internally to your company and to your internal customers, or you're going out and selling the product, you're in sales. Now, if you're in sales, you need a strategy. And a strategy means you have to have knowledge of your product and the market. And the market for this type of equipment is huge. Everyone in this room works for companies that use this type of technology. So, you may not know it, but we'll find out how to find out about it. Now, IT and purchasing departments might be able to help you with that knowledge, but they may also have a different agenda. Now, why would that be? That's because if you make lots of sales, you're called a rainmaker. Everyone knows what a rainmaker is, right? That's someone who produces results, bottom line results to your company or organization. Rainmakers are good. And a rainmaker is value to your company. So these high value assets may be something to get you a promotion, get you a raise. Okay? Maybe you can even show up for work on Monday. All right. Now, I want to go into kind of an overview of the basic investment recovery 101, which normally you would probably be hearing this from a Ron Brooks or a Michael Rhodes. But I'm going to tell it to you from a totally prejudiced and opinionated secondary market perspective. The opinions are my own. If I step on any toes here, any competitors or different ways of selling the assets, too bad, I got the mic. All right, let's start with investment recovery posted auctions. Now we know those auctions they're quick, they're fast, easy, gets rid of everything. But You may have, if you're doing it yourselves, you might have a limited range of participants. And you might not be getting the right people for these high-tech assets that are money makers. And therefore, you're going to get limited returns. Oh, when you go to a third party, eBay, GovBid, there's several other people in the association that are here today. Again, they are quick, fast, and easy, and they have something you probably don't. They have a database of hundreds of thousands of names, maybe a million, I don't know. But the problem that we find on auctions, period, is that everybody is vying for our attention. And what happens is you look up what they might have, and we have certain types of product that we look at on a regular basis for our established customer bases. And many times, the search engines on these professionally run auction sites makes it very difficult to get down to the microscopic level that we need to get for information. Plus, by the time we get someone responding, our need for that product has probably changed. Now, there's reuse and redeployment. This should be very high up on what you are doing. You want to reuse and redeploy all assets. But what you do come up with sometimes is an intercompany hoarding. Now, employee sale, donation to charity. I did find the donation to charity kind of an interesting thing listening to the Eli Lilly presentation earlier. The good part about it is like they were showing, you get goodwill. You know, you get on the news. People like that. It shows you that you're really helping the community. Now, in technology product, it really works best with desktop IT. Because, quite frankly, with the equipment we're talking about, I don't think you have an employee who wants to go out there and start their own long-distance telephone company. Now, the cons are, if you're dealing with an employee sale, you've got sales tax. Something doesn't work, your fellow employees are going to be mad at you. And of course, when you're doing charity, you've got to decide what charity you're going to select, what's the depreciation schedule, you've got to get involved with accounting. All right. That brings us to direct sales. That's when everyone in this room is going to be selling directly to either an end user or to a secondary market distributor. Now, you will have, if you're doing direct sales, you'll have your best possible chance for the highest return. All right, because you're dealing upstream on the product. Now, but to make it really high, it means you're going to have to act and function like a distributor. That means you've got to give credit terms. You're going to have good and proper shipping practices. We have some companies that it's like, you know, you come pick it up, you pack it up. You don't treat your customers like that if you're going to be a distributor. You have to give a product warranty. And you must treat your customers like your purchasing department demands to be treated by companies like ours. Now, do you have to do that? No. No. But to get the highest return, it's advisable. Otherwise, first off, look, an AT&T is not going to pay cashier's check in advance for your equipment. I'm sorry. Never going to happen. They're net 45 days. So if you can't handle those type of things, you're going to have to end up selling it in another matter. Which brings us to contracting with an IT recycler. Again, quick and easy. But your return is mostly based on scrap, precious metals, but you need to really develop a relationship with companies that specialize in IT recycling. I know Dag has a talk he's going to be giving after mine, talking about wireless security issues. Because you have a lot of security issues that you need to address when you're talking about a lot of this type of IT equipment. There's environmental issues that need to be addressed. So, what happens a lot of times when we talk to people, they'll say that they have someone who picks up all of their IT equipment and recycles it. Now, the problem with that is you are throwing out the good with the bad for expediency. All right. Now that brings us to selling through a broker or a distributor. And now there's a couple of types of resellers. You've got an all-purpose surplus asset broker, and they don't necessarily care what you have as long as they can flip it to somebody. And they'll give you more than scrap, and they'll probably take all of your surplus. But your return on investment is going to be measured on pennies on the dollar. And they're going to just look for secondary market distributors to flip it to anyway. So that brings us to sales or consignment through a secondary market reseller. Now, the pros are the highest possible return with less risk and less you being involved in the whole process than handling it directly yourself. So this is a good thing. And if you're dealing on a consignment basis, rather than having someone go and pay for the product to put on their shelf, they will probably be able to take some time to market it. And who are they going to sell it to? They're going to send it to end users who are going to be paying near the top of the market in the secondary market. They will also be selling to other resellers who might have a different end user. Now, what you need to do is look for a service-oriented distributor, someone that offers custom and creative solutions instead of a one-size-fits-all. Now, the cons of going this way is that your distributor may be a little picky about what it is that they want. Later on, I'm going to show you a slide of some equipment, and you're going to see this big equipment rack. And within the equipment rack are these shelves, and within these shelves are the cards that we have the most interest in. And you push them in, you pull them out. So we might actually say, well, we're interested in that Nortel DMS 100 switch that you have, but we want you to pull the cards out, properly pack them, ship them to us. As far as the frames are concerned, as far as the actual shelves are concerned, that's scrap. So that might not work for you. That's why you need to work with people that can work with you, and that's why you want creativity. So, what is it? George Carlin, using a little alliteration here, said, "It is it." We had a former president who once, paraphrase, he said, it depends on what your definition of it is. Before we talk about what it is, I'd like to talk about what it isn't. So here's some IT myths that we have accumulated over the many years we've been doing business with the members of the association. IT equals computers. Yeah, they do. But it's not just computers for breakfast anymore. There's a lot of other type of equipment. And maybe you just don't know where to look. We get told we don't have IT assets. Oh, yes, you do. You can't be in companies your size with multiple buildings, campuses, international, transnational, coast-to-coast offices, and not have the type of equipment that we're discussing here. We also we lease our IT assets from IBM, Dell. You lease your computers, maybe your printers, monitors, desktop IT stuff, sure. Your phone systems, PBXs, yeah. But you don't lease the telecommunications equipment and networking equipment that we're discussing here, because it would make no financial sense at all. We're talking about multi-million-dollar switches, routers, so it'd be impractical and very expensive to do that. Telecom equals telephones. Yeah, in a manner of speaking. But again, companies like ours may not necessarily be interested in your telephones or your PBXs. And it doesn't matter what I'm interested in, quite frankly. What I'm trying to direct everyone toward is a bigger picture, to look at finding the type of equipment that you should be looking at. So, what is it? What do you think it is? Class? Anyone? Anyone? Bueller? Oh, come on. The name of the thing is communications assets.
PCs, mainframes.
Information.
That's what it stands for. But that's a big idea. It's not an I period, T period. It's it. Remember? It is it.
It's air.
Not all inclusive. Actually, we want to get real. We want to get down to the microscopic level here. Because the biggest it of all is communications equipment. Equipment that moves voice and data from one place to another. So, this is where you find the equipment. It is going to be rack mounted. Racks are generally 6, 7 feet tall, 19 inches wide, 22, 23 inches wide, and they're going to have equipment in them. They're also going to be, as I'll show you in a moment, larger type of cabinets. That's where it is. And it is going to be in your data center, your network operating center, or your communications center. It's not going to be on your desktop. Okay. Why is it a high-value commodity? Simply because it has a long lifespan. Unlike desktop computers that you change out every 3 to 5 years, this equipment has a much longer lifespan. 5 years? Sure. 10? Yeah. 15, 20? 30? Does that sound like an exaggeration to anybody? 30 years for IT equipment? Yep. Yep. Nope. GTD5. This is a telecommunication switch, a digital switch that was invented in 1982 by GTE. It went into production. At that time, it went out of production, was discontinued in 2002. Now, GTE sold the assets, the switch, to AT&T. AT&T formed a holding company called AG Communications. AG Communications was folded with Lucent Technologies. Lucent got acquired by Alcatel, and it's Alcatel-Lucent, and 10 minutes from now it could be something else, who knows. All right. If you happen to have a GTD5 switch, the value of it, depending on the configuration, we'll talk about configuration a little bit later. Depending on the configuration, it is probably worth between $25,000 to $75,000. Now, does that sound incredible? No. We get every day RFQs from telephone companies looking for network spares on that product. They still have them in use. So, who would operate a switch that old? This is what we can say everybody. Large telcos, they start at one side of the alphabet and they go to the other side of the alphabet. Small, regional, rural telcos. There's like a couple of hundred rural telcos in Iowa alone. And they don't have a lot of budget, so they have to make their dollars stretch. So they need to keep the networks going. Cable networks. They use similar type of equipment. There's a lot of crossover in the cable world. And companies like the ones you work for. Okay, we live in a new world of communications, a digital world, a world, the VoIP world. We live in the cloud now. So, why would you be interested in still utilizing this old type of equipment? Simple. You don't replace a nationwide communication backbone every 3 to 5 years like you change out your computers. I mean, the interstate highway system started construction like in the 1950s, right? Okay. And they built out freeways. And then they found out, well, we got to build out a few more freeways. And then it gets congested. More people driving, more cars sold. And as a result, now you've got total traffic congestion. You have a way to move the traffic. So what do? Of course, You tear down the old freeway and you rebuild a brand new freeway using the latest in freeway production techniques, right? No. You expand it. You add lanes. You add bypasses. You double deck it. In the future, they'll have a monorail running through it. Maybe they'll even have a supersonic transport. Who knows? So, these switches that we're talking about, they're used throughout this nationwide communications backbone. The beauty of the equipment is that it can be adapted to new technologies. It can be expanded. So like a freeway carrying more traffic, these switches can carry more traffic. Okay, so you expand what it can be done. So they're very, they can be modified. Companies, you know, like Cisco are coming up with adaptations. The geniuses of Juniper, you know, who knows what they're going to come up with tomorrow, next week, next year. So why not just replace your older equipment? Simple, it works. And there is a secondary market. It supports that network. And if it can't be supported, the part can't be found, what happens? There are repair depots to fix the product. And that means that telecom companies and companies like yours with large internal communication networks, you can keep those networks humming because you've got network spares for companies that have been out of business 20, 30 years. So never argue with what works. Okay, any case in point. One of our customers that we deal with is a large government value-added reseller. And they had a project up in, for the Canadian government, and they were tying different offices together. In Montreal and Toronto, they were using these Cisco switches, not terribly expensive, and, but they did not do the Quebec. And when they asked why, you know, they're like, yeah, later, it's not in the budget, later. Well, later becomes 3 years later. All right, so now they're asked to connect Quebec, and they go, well, we got a little small problem. That switch is no longer manufactured or supported. It's reached end of life. So, but Cisco has a switch that will fit right in there, same footprint, same thing, plug right in. It'll work great. Not much more. And they said, no, we want the old switch. Why? Because it worked. So, the VAR had to go out into the secondary marketplace to find an additional switch in order to keep their customer happy. All right. This is part of the discussion where I want to go into how you're going to make the case to your people of why you should be handling these assets. And I just want to make a couple of cases based on the files of RDS. Case number one we call maximizing return. This involved a utility company that, and like all utility companies, you're under regulations about what you can sell product at. You've got rules and procedures for the most part that you have to go through, accounting procedures, etc. And so this utility company put out multiple bids for this particular lot of surplus. And we were interested in particular on the Telabs Digital Access Cross Connect switch. It's a fairly old switch, actually. And the reason we were interested is that we have a customer who buys some of this, these cards from us, circuit packs are called, from us on a fairly regular basis. But in the secondary marketplace, we can find them relatively inexpensive, and we can sell them for decent margins. But we thought, hey, why not have some on the shelf? All right, so we looked at what our, we've been able to sell it to the customer. So we kind of come up with this would be the maximum we can sell it at. And then it's like, well, what can we buy it at? And how long is it going to be on our shelf? A couple of years maybe. And then it's kind of like, well, there's freight. So what are we going to finally offer on this product? So we made an offer, and we won. And then we started actively marketing the product. We sold a few cards here and there. We weren't making our money back at this point by any means. We thought it was a 2-year process. But after 6 months, curiously enough, we found a company that, well, it wasn't a company, it was the Air Force, that they wanted to expand their existing LS Cross Connect switch. Now, I'll be honest with you, that doesn't happen every day that someone wants to expand an older switch. Mostly what we're talking about here has to do with getting these cards out and as they break down in service, using them as backup spares. It's called network spares. So to actually sell an entire switch, it's kind of rare. So, but they had no choice. They did not have much of a budget. The equivalent equipment was going to be something in the $10 to $11 million range, and they, as it turned out, only had a $150,000 budget. So, because we're dealing with the Air Force, it took about 6 months to consummate the entire deal. But here was the net result. We paid $1,500 for the unit. I thought we could sell it in 2 years for $15,000. We ended up selling it for $125,000. And the beauty about this is, it was a 256 port switch. No one needs to know what that means. And we sold them half of it. So we still have another half that they decide to expand at the Air Force again. Okay, case study number 2. We call this thinking outside the box, being creative. Another utility company, same type of situations, putting out multiple bids. Now, however, their IT manager, he understands that consignment could work out best, but you're supposed to put out these multiple bids, supposed to get the best bid. Well, does the best bid have to be the highest bid? Show of hands. Does the best bid have to be the highest bid? Okay, it has to be the best bid. And that means what are the terms and conditions that are involved. Here's where you get creative. We ended up buying the equipment for a small amount. All right? And then we said we're going to set up a consignment contract, whereas if we sell it in the next 6 months, we'll split the proceeds. And guess what? We didn't sell it. In fact, we scrapped part of it a couple of weeks ago. You know, so you don't always make great decisions. But was this a failure? No, sir. Because the seller created a business case. He was able to sell it to management, and he's moving toward a more profitable position. All right? And to be honest with you, I think with what we paid them, they made more than what they would have gotten from the scrap dealer anyway. All right, case study number 3. Knowing your market. And this is really when having a secondary market reseller for whatever assets that you are responsible for. I realize not everyone here is doing IT. You could be doing turbines, you could be doing copper. But you're going to be dealing with different types of brokers and distributors. Always go with someone who has secondary market experience, which means they are selling to end users and so it's being sold upstream. So we had this potentially high value Alcatel-Lucent card, part of the consignment we have with the communications company. Now, when we did our market research, we determined that the value to end users was in the $2,000 to $2,500 range. We keep pretty extensive history records with our customized software so we can see where trends are, see what's happening, see who has what they're quoting out. What we also did was, we went to other secondary market resellers and said, hey, we have a couple of these. You interested? Say, yeah. And so we got bids, offers. We didn't tell them we had as many as we did. We told them we had a couple. And people would pay us $150, $400. All right. Funny thing is, you know the $400 one offer we had? It was from Alcatel-Lucent. From their, they sell, Alcatel-Lucent resells their circuit packs at very high margins, by the way. So that's why they could buy it from us for $400 and sell it for $2,000 or $2,500 or whatever they charge for it. All right. So we kept this card in stock about 6 months. All right. We quoted it several times, and everyone's always offering us a lower price. But we know the market. So we ended up selling it to an end user in February. And they had come to us when we said, what you target, it was within the realm of reason. It was under the 2,000, but we were able to work a deal to get it up in value. So the result was, we knew the market, we were willing to wait because we had a market advantage. Nobody had this card, but everyone was looking for it. We sold all 18 cards for $2,050 each. All right, we're going to make the case. What specifically is it? This is the list of it. This is the product that we sell to end users and other distributors on a daily basis. Now, you don't have to write it down. The handouts that Eleanor gave you contain a couple of sheets of that information. So look it up, talk to whoever you need to talk to if you don't handle these assets directly, and ask them if they have this type of product that's coming out in surplus at any time in the future, or it might be something that might be in someone's warehouse. Now, I want to point out a couple of items up here. The first one in red, the Lucent 5 ESS. Okay, this is what it looks like. And if you see, it's in this big cabinet. And these horizontal lines there, those are the shelves. And the vertical lines are the circuit packs. Those are the cards that have the value. That's the money in the system. The shelves have no value. Scrap them. The frames have no value. Unless someone happens to want to start a telephone company, you're probably not going to need everything. But the cards are where they have value. Now, but here's the thing. The telecom market is a little peculiar than other type of markets. And a lot of this equipment is very rev level specific. And in a lot of these telecom parts, they have, besides the part number, something called a CLI. Common Language Equipment. Thank you. I always forget the I. All right. I wish I had a $100,000 bar to give you. That's great.
Give me a check.
Yeah. I'll give you, yeah, here, we got a check. Let me just endorse it on the back. Okay, now the CLI I told you, it's like a 10-digit, alphanumeric digit, 10 characters long, the first 7 really count. And that tells you specifically what the value may be. Now sometimes the CLI doesn't make any difference in price, sometimes it does. There's a particular card in here called a KTU2. Again, you don't even know anything about it, but if it has one CLI, well, it used to be worth a couple of grand. Now they're about 700. Or if you have an older CLI, a different CLI, it might be worth 50 bucks. Okay? So that's how specific it is. We had a customer that had a 5ESS switch, and it was brand new in the crate. They'd had it since about 1998. And they wanted us to make an offer. So we asked them, we need some information. And we need part numbers, we need CLIs. And they said, we don't got that. Okay, what do you got? Got packing lists, okay. And it had what the cards were, but again, no CLIs. We have some contacts at Alcatel-Lucent that we could go to tell them, hey, this telco bought this at this time. Can you look something up in your record? No, couldn't do anything. So we didn't know what was in it. So, in a case like that, are we going to bid a high price or are we going to bid a low price? Absolutely. Zero information means you're going to get the lowest possible bid. We ended up offering them I think what I would consider, with shipping costs and everything, what was a reasonable enough offer. They thought it was great, and then management looked at it and said, no, let's just scrap it. So they did. If they had shipped it to us and the money card was in it, it might have been worth $50,000 to $100,000 at the time. But no, no, they decided 12 cents a pound is good enough. All right. The next one, Realtek, Lorraine, Marconi, I think they're now Emerson. These are rectifiers. That's what they look like. Kind of old school power type of cards. This particular one, we could sell 50 to 100 every month. They're very, very popularly used everywhere. One of the nice things about some of this stuff is that because power is generates heat, these are the components that generally go out more often than anything else is going out. Your other cards might go out because of surges or what have you, but these kind of things get replaced quite often. Now, in this situation, we have about 50 or 60 that were given to us in consignment. Now, the issue was we would get RFQs pretty much daily, but other people had this same product. They might not have had 50 or 60, but they had 5, 2, 10. So if an RFQ comes through for 10, and someone has 5 over here, 3 over here, 2 over there, and they can buy them out, then we can make this whole thing happen as far as offering a lower price. Otherwise, we would offer a higher price. So within a 2-month span, we sold all 50 units in time, but we sold them between $800 and $2,000, $2,200, $2,400, something like that. So it depends on what your competitors have. So this kind of goes to something we probably should have mentioned in an IT myth, and that is manage expectations. Okay, so IR department should be in control or at least in the loop of these type of assets. If high-tech assets are high-value tech assets are managed by purchasing, they might make the case for trading in the product for future purchases. We had a situation with one of the retail members of the association where they had a couple of thousand old Dell servers. And what ended up happening was Dell would give them a $25,000 credit for everything. And that's not a bad deal necessarily. They asked our opinion, and we said, yeah, not bad. But doing a little market research, we thought 25 is a little low, maybe 50, maybe 75. We thought 100 actually, but we didn't want to overpromise and underperform. So we were given the opportunity. Within a 8-month period of time, because it took 6 months to bring them all out. Some we sold by the pallet load, some we sold one-on-one basis to eBay or other methods, and we ended up, instead of them getting $25,000 from Dell, they got something like around $275,000. Big difference. So, purchasing may take the easy way out. Okay, if surplus is controlled by IT, they are going to hold on to it for as long as possible. And what's going to happen is, in most cases, the value is going to go from here all the way down to a quantum singularity, and it's going to collapse into itself, forming a dark star that is going to suck all the IT equipment into it, otherwise known as the IT closet. Anyone ever had the guts to open the IT closet door? Scary, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. Anyone see the show Hoarders? It's based on IT departments. Okay, make the case. Conduct a market survey to determine potential worth. Now, you can do this by delegating it to your internal team. And you say, Brian, I am the team. I got too much to do. I want to handle this. Or I have internal team members, they're way too busy. We're working on our core surplus. That is what generates our normal surplus asset dollars. Why should we don't have anyone to do that? How are we going to do that? Well then, that's when you enlist a trusted and reliable secondary market distributor. Most importantly, what you need to do is form a relationship with them, because it is a two-way street. So the better information you give them, the better information you're going to get back in return. So that's the business case. But what's the best business case of all? On Monday, you go back to work. Your boss asks you, so you're in Scottsdale, you get a little golf, party too hard, get some sun in, go to the pool. What are you going to tell your boss what you did here? You're going to tell him, you know what, I learned a lot of different things. I learned a lot of different techniques, and I found things that I can do to bring something into the company. And hopefully you're going to tell them that you found a way that you might be able to find hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of hidden treasures in your communication room. Or, you know, that product we scrapped about a week or two ago, yeah, it turns out that was worth about $100,000. What are you going to say? Anyway, before we get into any questions and answers, I just wanted to kind of close on a little personal note. Like Bill said, I've been a member of the association since 1998, and you know, I'm looking at a lot of people out here I've known since that time, and other people that maybe I met a year ago and 2 years ago or what have you. Okay. Back in those days, it was kind of like the heady days of investment recovery, it seems. Companies would show up with their posses. Verizon brings 10 people all over the country, even Hawaii. It's not that way anymore. There's been a lot of consolidation with companies. And when companies consolidate, they consolidate jobs. They consolidate jobs, they look at bottom line expenses. Okay. So, regardless of who you talk to, I really encourage you. This is good stuff. This is stuff that can bring you high value. Be that rainmaker. Go in there, find this type of product. Contact any of us. Contact anyone you already deal with. And find out what they might be able to do for you. Because as these budgets of yours shrink and things get consolidated, I want you to find this value so that you guys are here wherever this conference is going to be next year.